Okay, so in this video we're just going to correct this differentiation test. So the first thing we need to do is differentiate 4x squared. So when we differentiate 4x squared, the 2 goes to the front, multiplies by the 4, and what we get there is 8. And what we need to do is take 1 away from the power, so 2 minus 1 is 8x1. And when you differentiate 5, you actually get 0. So the answer to this when you differentiate it is 8x. Okay? When we differentiate this one, what we get is we differentiate 9x, and when you differentiate x, you get rid of the x and it becomes 9. Bring the 3 to the front, so you're going to get minus 3x, and then take 1 away from the 3 and you get minus 3x squared, and that's the answer to part A. Now, part B is a differentiation from first principles, so what we have to do, you can check the answer straight away by just differentiating as you normally would by putting 2 there, so you get 2x. Differentiate x squared, bring the 2 to the top, 2 to the front, then take 1 away from the power, and when you differentiate x, any number in front of an x, it ends up to be just that number. So the answer is when you differentiate is 2x plus 5. Now you actually get 0 marks for doing this, but what you need to do is it basically gives you the answer so you know what answer to expect. So it's very important to get full marks in this question that you write down your full technique, alright, on the right hand side, on the left hand side, okay? It's just as important as the right. So f of x is x squared plus 5x. F of x plus h is going to be x plus h squared plus 5 bracket x plus h. Okay, next part is going to be f of x plus h minus f of x. Now the key thing to understand is that the mistake is going to be made is the minus f of x part, okay? So what we'll do here is we'll get, so before we even do this, we need to process the f of x plus h a bit more than we did, okay? So what we can do here is we can just square it out. Now when you square out x plus h, it's x plus h by x plus h, and that is the same thing as x into x plus h plus h into x plus h, and we get here is x squared plus hx plus hx plus h squared. Now this turns out to be is x squared plus 2hx plus h squared. Now we have the 5x plus 5h, and that is f of x plus h. Now, as I was saying before, the next step is f of x plus h minus f of x, and we got to be aware of the minus f of x part, okay? So let's write down f of x plus h as it was in the last line, plus 2hx plus h squared plus 5x plus 5h. Now just be aware of this, okay? So it's going to be minus 1 times whatever is in this bracket, and what's in the f of x bracket? It's x squared plus 5x, okay? Now what you can do here is you can just get rid of the multiply in by the minus 1, so you can get rid of it, and what's going to do is it's going to turn that into minus x squared, and it's going to turn the other part into minus 5x squared, okay? So minus 5x. Now, all of a sudden you can see what cancels off. You know that this x squared cancels with minus x squared, the plus 5x cancels with the minus 5x, and if you've done this properly, every term you have left should have a h in it. So we have 3 terms left, the 2hx, the h squared, and 5h, and they all have h in them. Now the next step is to rewrite your last step and now divide it by h. And to divide that by h, all you gotta do is just put it all over h, and then in turn put this all over h. Now when h divides in, we're going to get the following: h into h, h takes 1 away 1 to h squared, and then takes 1 to h's here. So what we're left with is going to be 2x plus h plus 5. Now the last step, and you need to write this down, is limit as h approaches 0, not h equals 0, h approaches 0, of f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. And what this does is we've basically turned the h into a 0. So this h now becomes a 0. And then we finally know that f of x is equal to 2x plus 5. Okay. Now, next part, we're going to do the chain rule. Now to do the chain rule, we move the 5 to the front, take 1 away from the power, then we differentiate what's in here. So dy dx is going to become 5 by 3x minus 7, 5 times 3 minus 7x to the power of 4. Now this is the part that a lot of people leave out, is differentiating the bracket here, and that's going to be minus 7. Now what we can do is we can multiply the 5 by the minus 7, and what we can get here is minus 35 into 3 minus 7x to the power of 4. Now remember, you don't square it out, okay, and that'll be your answer there. The next one's a quotient rule. This is u and this one is v. So what we have here is we can say u equals x squared. Therefore du dx ends up to be equal to 2x. V ends up to be equal to 1 minus x. Therefore dv dx ends up to be minus 1. Now, a important thing about the quotient rule is not getting it mixed up, okay? So it's to take it down exactly as it looks in the tables. So it's going to be phi times du dx minus u times dv dx all over phi squared. Okay? So what happens here is just got to fill in the brackets for each one. Phi is 1 minus x. Du dx is 2x minus u times dv dx, which is 2x times minus 1, divided by phi squared, which is 1 minus x squared. Now, we just got to multiply these out, and what we'll end up getting is 1 multiplied with 2x is 2x, minus x by 2x is minus 2x squared, minus 2x multiplied by minus 1 is plus 2x. And this is all going to be over 1 minus x squared. And what this will simplify down to is 4x minus 2x squared all over 1 minus x. Now, what we can do next is we're asked to show that dy dx equals 0. So we got dy dx, we have to show it equals 0 at x equals 0. This means if I replace all x with 0, the answer for dy dx should be 0. And we know it's a show question. The key language there is show, which means that this has got to be true. Okay, so what we can do here is just simply replace all x's with zeros. 2 times 0 squared all over 1 minus 0 squared, and what we're going to get is 0 over 1, which equals 0, and hence this is true. Okay, so we just have to prove it. Okay, next part. A car starting at t equals 0 travels a distance of s meters in t seconds. So this is a formula for distance in terms of time, where s, the distance, equals 30t minus 9 over 4t squared. Now, if you're given a distance formula, okay, a distance formula, the first derivative, the first differentiation, so the first derivative gives you gives velocity or speed, if we can spell velocity, that is, gives velocity, bracket speed. The second one, second derivative, gives acceleration. Okay, so if we read our question, it wants the speed of the car at 2 seconds. What this means is get the STT and then put in t equals 2. Okay, so it's that easy. Okay, so velocity. So what we're going to do here is get the STT. So the formula here is going to be s in terms of t. So the STT. So it's going to be 30. Bring the 2 forward, and you're going to get 18 over 4. 18 over 4. Take 1 away from the power. 18 over 4t. Okay, it's the same thing as 30 minus 9 over 2t. Okay, and we know that t equals 2. So all we got to do is sub in t equals 2. So we get 30 minus 9 over 2 times 2. And that's going to be 21. Now please remember your units. Speed is going to be meters, because s is meters, and seconds. So it's going to be meters per second. Okay, the next one. After how many seconds does the speed of the car equal to 0? So this means that the STT, which is the speed, equals 0. Which means 30t minus 9 over 2t equals 0. And this means that, 30, it's not 30t, it's simply 30. 30 minus 9 over 2t equals 0. Okay, so what happens is 9 over 2t must equal 30, and therefore t is going to be 6. T is going to be, we need to get t on its own. So in order to get t on its own, we could do one of two ways. We could say that 9 over 2 is the same as 4.5t equals 30. Therefore t, because 4.5 is multiplication on the left side, it must be division on the right hand side when it gets moved over. And we know that this time equals 6 2/3 seconds. Okay, the next part. Find the distance travelled by the car up to the time its speed is 0. So we now know that it takes 6 2/3 seconds to actually reach 0. So this formula here, the distance formula, gives you how much distance it covers when you input a time. So the time we need to input is 6 2/3 seconds. So this is for part 3 here. So we're just going to use part 3 up here. It's much easier. So part 3 of our question. All we got to do here is just put in 2/3, 6 2/3, where we see the time. 6 2/3 minus 9 over 4 times 6 2/3 squared. Now, you may want to write it. You could write it as basically, in a calculator, it might be difficult to put 6 2/3 in. So what you can do is you can change it to a top heavy fraction by changing the settings, pressing the fraction converter in your calculator. So we could get 20 over 3 minus 9 over 4 20 over 3 squared. You can put that into your calculator and the answer will be 100 meters. Okay, so just put it direct into your calculator. And that's the end of the test.